Alarm bells should be ringing. People are beginning to live inside homes so small that they cannot even stand up in them at times or even lie down and stretch out their legs. Are coffin homes spreading across the United States? Yes, they are. We're going to take a look at it. These pods are stacked on top of each other like filing cabinets so that human bodies slide into them. Increasingly, that is the state of housing today. Is this how bad things are becoming with the lack of housing supply? Stick around, and by the end of this video, you're going to see where and how coffin home living is spreading across the United States. Hi, I'm Keith Weinhold. This is GRE. What is a coffin home? Now, Hong Kong is probably the best known place for these. I'm talking about tiny subdivided housing units, sometimes as small as 3 feet by 6 feet, known as coffin homes because you cannot do much more than lie down inside them. This would be a home of about 2 square meters where you might not even be able to stand up in it. And yeah, this has been a sad and extreme outcome of really the wealth and prosperity from the Hong Kong real estate boom, where an estimated 200,000 people priced out of the market need to live in these partitioned apartments, coffin homes, and otherwise inadequate housing. Some are so small that yes, lying down, a person cannot even fully stretch out their legs sometimes. Then you might have, say, 24 separate coffin home residents that share a kitchen and a bathroom that's down a hall in these grimy places. Now, I first became aware of these a few years ago, but I now have really the first, or really the best evidence that the American housing supply has dipped so low and home prices have risen so high. And here's a look at how low American housing supply has sunk today, such that we now have a model for coffin homes in the United States, especially in California. A Bay Area startup is offering bunk bed style pods. You pay $800 a month for up to 14 people living in a single family home. Brownstone Shared Housing, that's the name of a company. They're a year-old startup, and they build themselves as a short-term solution for students or for people working on temporary jobs. Now, it's in Palo Alto, California, and its home houses, indeed, these 14 people in a house with 2 bathrooms, a kitchen, and plentiful communal spaces. For $800 a month, residents of the home, which is close to the Stanford campus, so a high housing price area here, they get utilities, internet, a work from home space, and access to a sleeping pod. And of course, notice how they use a more genteel name for them, like they will. They wouldn't use coffin home. They refer to them as sleeping pods. Some refer to them as sleeping cocoons. And it comes with a built-in fan, electrical lighting, a fold-down desk, and a charger for electrical gadgets. And the pods are stacked too tall, and they do have curtains that close for privacy. Is this humane? I mean, is this how we want Americans to live? I mean, I guess some might compare this to being homeless, but I don't think of this as much of a solution. As soon as we have to compare homelessness to how something is better than that, that's really not the basis for comparison that we want for having a good standard of living, for people having a good quality of life. I mean, is this really a dignified existence? These pods are stacked on top of each other like human bodies that slide into filing cabinets. Hey, before you and I explore this deeper, go ahead and put a like on this if you like that we're exploring the dearth of American housing supply again, like we've done for months, but we're certainly taking a different course on this with these coffin-like homes. I'd really appreciate the like. Adequate housing is a scarce resource, but likes aren't. Now, this startup company in California, they don't run traditional credit checks on their tenants. Instead, they run a background check to make sure that a potential tenant can live with others. There's no security deposit, making it pretty easy to move. The website says that we evaluate people by the content of their character, not the contents of their bank account. I guess statements like that make everyone feel better. Now, Stallworth, who's the name of the co-founder of this startup, he said that most occupants in these sleeping pods are in their 20s or 30s, and they're interns, They're people on temporary work assignments, or they're people that are just at the start of their careers. Now, they've taken this Palo Alto model and they are duplicating it in Bakersfield. Now, Palo Alto, California, that's Silicon Valley. That's really high-priced real estate. But Bakersfield is inland. The housing market dynamic there is substantially different and less expensive. I mean, is this concerning to you? Now, Stallworth said he wants to expand the housing concept in Brooklyn, where they've already got 400 interested people that have signed up for this cocoon-like housing there. He said there are so many people who aren't doing things because housing is a barrier, and our plans are to go wherever there is the greatest need. Now, is this a disturbing trend, or are they meeting a need? If they're doing both, I think it's more of the former. I find this a disturbing trend. Now, some cities have restrictions on the number of unrelated people that can exist inside one dwelling unit, but those sorts of things are really rarely strictly enforced. The pod houses do enforce a no overnight visitors policy in order to keep crowding down. That's what Stallworth said. And by the way, this pod-like living, that's not a completely brand new thing, but the problem is spreading with this dearth of housing supply. In fact, in Los Angeles, residents of a co-living complex called Eddie pay $795 to $945 a month for a pod bed in a furnished home. Tenants get linen services, shared computers, and an on-site gym. A chain of residences is called Pod Share. They're also in the Los Angeles area, and they charge $50 a night or $1,000 a month for a pod. And once they've paid, residents can move freely among 5 facilities. PodShare's website says, "We believe that you only really need a small space to yourself to sleep, relax, and store your belongings. The rest of our time should be spent on shared experiences." This proliferation of pod-like housing, I find it concerning. It's like one rung below your classic Manhattan studio apartment and one rung above homelessness. Well, I've talked a fair bit here about how America should stop with the housing incentives that assist people on the demand side, like first-time homebuyer tax incentives, and get more help over here on the supply side where we need more housing. And hopefully supply side help would occur more naturally with more builders building and less government intervention. But you know, the Biden administration seems to be doing something about this. Now, they issued this white paper. It's too long to go through every part of it, but this could be big. Let me just bring out some of the more important parts of it. Just a couple weeks ago, a White House press report announced new actions to ease the burden of housing costs. It's a new Biden-Harris administration housing supply action plan to help close the housing supply gap in 5 years. Yeah, you heard me right. I said close the housing supply gap, not just trying to help out the demand side where we don't need the help. This is substantially better than giving more money to home buyers, which really just helps fuel bidding wars and pump up the demand side. Whether you agree with Biden's means or not, you know, they do get it. America needs housing. It still makes mention of down payment assistance and rental assistance inside it, which helps the demand side when we need all-out help on the supply side. But suffice to say, it will reward jurisdictions that have reformed zoning and land use policies. It sets out to reduce regulatory barriers and scale up ADUs, which some know as mother-in-law apartments, and also provide tax credits to rehab homes for low and middle income buyers and more, incentivize construction of rural housing, and quite a bit more. So Biden acknowledges a problem, and he also acknowledges that it could take a full 5 years to really make a dent in this housing crisis. So a little bit of light there for you at the end, and my gosh, I sure hope that it keeps Coffin homes off of our shores. Hey, well, please leave a comment below. Do you have any experience with this cocooned living? And what are your other thoughts about the astounding lack of good housing supply in the United States? I'd really appreciate your comment. I'll try to reply to it, and you'll know it's me because it'll say -Keith at the end of the reply. I'm Keith Weinhold. Thanks so much for being here. I'll see you in the next video.